Yeah, we have an addition from the chair of the fundraising committee. Will come in after 3.6, so I guess it'll be 3.7. So Mayor McDermott, verbal report. Thank you. Chair. Okay. Ask for approval of the agenda. Mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Kelly, seconded by Reeve Liverance. That the agenda for the July 9th, 2025 West Parry Sound Recreation Cultural Center Board is hereby approved as circulated. Discussion. All those in favor? Carried. Any declaration of pecuniary interest? Seeing none. Approval of minutes. Ask for a mover and a seconder. Moved by Mayor McGarvey, seconded by Councillor Fellner. That the minutes of the June 11th, 2025 regular meeting and June 18th special meeting of the West Parry Sound Recreation and Cultural Center Board are hereby approved as circulated. Discussion. All those in favor? Carried. Delegations and correspondence, none for tonight. Move on to item 3, business. 3.1 is the open agenda item for any steering committee updates not going to be presented tonight. No. Okay, thank you. Item 3.2, project and budget update submitted by the steering committee.
Mr. Chair, I've reached out to representatives from Ball. I haven't heard back yet, so perhaps we can move to the next item and come back once I get confirmation that they'll be joining us. Otherwise, I'm happy to provide the update.
Okay, thank you. Move on to item 3.3, monthly financial reports submitted by the steering committee. And tonight by Ms. Phillips.
Thank you. So the balance sheet shows that the cash balance is approximately $546,828 at the end of June 2025. The charity bank account is now at $298,184. So that was the monies moved over from the town of Parry Sound to the MSB. There should be 1 million, close to 1.1 million, so $1,077,901 in the charity bank account with all the fundraising earned to date. So approximately 780,000 is due to the charity account from the general bank account. So within the monthly report, it's recommended that we would use the fundraising monies for cash flow prior to utilizing the line of credit. So that's what's already kind of happening there now. But now that we've opened the reserve fund, I'm reporting that to the MSB how much is due to that account. So the line of credit usage is at prime less 0.6, or the line of credit percentage is prime less 0.65, and the bank earns interest at prime less 1.65%. So there's a 1% differential. So we'll just use fundraising monies and then prior to the line of credit, and then return those as we get grant monies in, kind of thing. To do that, a due to amount would be calculated monthly, and then interest would be applied on the due to amount in a spreadsheet, and then and annually we would adjust. So this would happen until grant and municipal contributions are used up for funding, and then fundraising would be applied to the project after that. So 16.9 million approximately has been recorded in work in progress towards capital works to date. And the statement of operations, 293,000 has been transferred to the MSB as a gift from the town of Parry Sound. That's now reflected as donations. 230,000 approximately in other donations, 5,000 approximately in fundraising initiatives and 261,000 in sponsorship naming rights revenues have been received, so those are reflected. Total fundraising revenues reflected year to date are $788,683. $1,187 in bank charges and 35,000 in legal costs are reflected on the statement of operations. Funds on hand are earning interest of $48,894 year to date. And some minor costs such as website costs and 3,000 for the Trellis software fee and minor promotional costs are reflected year to date. As of June, the fundraising surplus from the beginning to date is nearing 1.1 million, and future commitments made are 1.6 million based upon signed sponsorship and naming rights agreements to date. The first payment for sponsorship and naming rights agreement with Tamarack North of 150,000 is reflected for the naming of Tamarack North Center. And for the reserve fund usage for cash flow, this is typically how reserve funds are used for the town of Parry Sound and many other municipalities where they track due tos and from reserves to maintain a balance monthly. In this case, we only have one major project, so it isn't really as important to keep things segregated, but this way we'll track how much of the fundraising remains and hasn't been used year to date. So it's just the best practice to separate those in that way. Any questions related to that?
Councillor Kelly?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just one question clarification on page 16, referring to the line of credit. It says there's no draws as of the end of June. We're not using our credit capacity in that. Is that correct?
Yes, that's true. Through the chair, we haven't had to draw on the line of credit to date. At one time, grant claims were coming in a bit slower, like more than 6 months past when we were submitting them, but now it actually has improved quite a lot from that time. So some of it that's contributing to that as well, where we're receiving grant funding earlier, so we're not having to use the line of credit as well as other factors. Yeah.
Well, that's good news. Thank you.
Any other questions? Treasurer? The resolution on the table. A mover and a seconder, moved by Mayor McGarvey, seconded by Councillor Kelly. That the June 30th, 2025 financial reports we received for information that the board approves the temporary borrowing from the Charity Reserve Fund for cash flow purposes to save the differential in borrowing costs of 1% from the line of credit. Discussion? All those in favor? Carried. We have wall construction yet. Item 3.4, additional consulting services regarding the pool timing electronic donor wall submitted by the steering committee. Mr. Inwood.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As briefly reported on at last month's meeting, we've received the fee schedule to complete the design and the cost estimates for the actual installation of conduit and structural adjustments to accommodate future pool timing and donor wall equipment. $9,620 is the consulting fees to undertake that work. At this point, it is an addition to the scope of work, and therefore the steering committee has no ability to authorize that work without board approval. So with this report, we're seeking board approval if you would like us to proceed with that scope of work.
Okay. I'll put the resolution on the table and we can, if there's any discussion or questions. Mover and a seconder. Moved by Reeve Liverance, seconded by Councillor Kelly. That the board directs the steering committee to proceed with CS&P Architects additional consulting services to design and prepare pricing specifications for the installation of electrical conduit and structural adjustments supporting the future establishment of a pool timing system and electronic donor wall at a cost of $9,620. Discussion. Mayor McGarvey?
Mr. Chair, do we have a cost on what the electronic donor wall is going to be?
Put that to the steering committee.
Yeah.
Through the chair, we don't have a hard cost. We have some cost estimates. The ranges are vast. We will be issuing an RFP later this summer, early in the fall, to determine the exact costs. That was a discussion point, if I remember correctly, at the last meeting or a couple of meetings ago. But at this point, we haven't confirmed pricing because we haven't tendered it out.
Well, I'm just wondering, like, I get the timer part of it, but you know, there are other ways of highlighting donors or whatever and other types of walls and that kind of stuff that are less costly. And I mean, if we're talking vast, that it's a lot of money, we could put that money to something else and do something a little more simple, but it still gets the recognition up there as to who's donating what.
Mr. Elwood?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, the ranges, as I understand, can be rather inexpensive for an electronic donor wall, up into hundreds of thousands, or depending on what you are looking for. We had the discussion here that we certainly weren't looking to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on a donor wall, electronic donor wall, but to find a very cost-effective solution to an electronic donor wall. And the rationale I would suggest behind an electronic donor wall is that as donors come and go, and as we see endowment dollars in the future coming towards it, it's nice to be able to amend and update and add new information to that wall. It's pretty standard. It's pretty common to see them at this stage in a variety of different settings. And so I think the cost associated with conduit and structural at this point is it's a much more efficient time to do it now than it will be to do it at a later date.
Yep.
And that's why we've asked for approval to proceed.
Okay. Fair enough.
Any other questions, discussions, relevance?
Thank you, Dale. Yeah, so I guess the question I'd have in my mind, I think this goes back to what Jason was speaking to, is I would think that a electrical donor wall would be advantageous to help gather funds from donors with that when they know that their name will be up in lights. I mean, I know that I've seen donor walls at other places like hockey arenas, and the boards just don't cut it anymore. You know, I know they're less expensive, but I think that, you know, I'm certainly don't need a Cadillac for this, but I think that we need to be stay with the current times. Thank you.
Councillor Fellner?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm in agreement actually with as well. I think that what we're approving right now is just the engineering to get the utilities installed, right? Then I think down the road, we've got the opportunity to see what our snack bracket is for a sign, you know, and I know the cost can be all over the map. And I think, you know, we can see how things are going then. And I think to Reeve Livingston's point that, you know, I think the electronic version is the way to go, but, you know, not really committing at this point to anything more than getting the utilities and structural support that we need down the road, right? So I'm good with this resolution.
Any other questions or comments? I'll just make a comment that I'm sure if you split this out, it's probably 50-50 anyway between the pool timing and the other running conduit. So it could be, if we get to the point where it looks like the donor wall we want is too expensive, then that can be something that's an add-on after the project anyway, with a temporary and then a permanent one put in to do it. And it's going to come back to this committee anyway for it. So I would be supportive of it as well. So any other discussion? I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried. Item 3.5, Directors and Officers General Liability Insurance, submitted by the steering committee. Mr. Harris.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a standard renewal. Currently, the board has $5 million in liability, director's liability insurance, so this would continue that. There's a clause in there that allows the chair to increase the amount of insurance to 10 million because through the operating agreement discussions, there was a conversation and the Y thought that perhaps we collect the Y and the board should each have 10 million in insurance. I understand that the Y is now going to put that in abeyance until the facility opens next year. So that approving this at the $5 million level, no premium increase, same coverage as we have to date is what would be recommended to the board.
Thank you. And just for the board's information, to go from 5 million to 10 million, right now the 5 million is the 15,000. As you can see, to go to 10 million was an additional $10,000 cost to us. And I did have discussions with the Y, pointed out at this point, the 10 million is more necessary when we're operating. And at this point, we're not operating. The construction risk, the builder's risk insurance is with Ball Construction. This is just simply our liability insurance policy. So once we get to the point of opening doors, we'll have to be going out to the market anyway for pricing for the building and the liability at that point. And it may be in my limited insurance experience, sometimes it's more attractive for people almost every time to quote on a property, building, and liability at the same time rather than just liability by itself. So hopefully we get some better numbers going forward. But I do recognize it is good that BFL has left their pricing the same right from the start. So that's appreciated as well and unusual in the insurance world. So we have a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Fellner, second by Councillor Kelly. That the insurance renewal from BFL Canada Inc. through Lloyd's of London for 5 million in insurance coverage for directors, officers, and general liability be approved. Discussion. All those in favor? Carried. Meeting, I'm a voting member. Item 3.6, media releases submitted by Vice Chair McGarvey. Mayor McGarvey.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Mr. Chair, I found it, I mean, we had a major donation and media release, and I found it rather awkward that another organization actually put it out before we did, or we even received the information. So I'm just wondering if we develop a little bit of protocol around the media release so that maybe we're aware of it before it goes to another organization to be put out.
I can speak to, I guess, first of all, I'd have to question who the we is in your question, because by we, certainly I was aware of the press release. The chair of the fundraising committee was aware of the press release. Valerie, I apologize for mispronouncing her name, but who the board's been using, who is an employee of Sigma, has a media relations background. So we definitely were aware of the release, and the members would have been aware of it because the night before we voted on what was in the what was the topic of the release anyway. So I just, when you say we should, it's not like we're surprised by the announcement.
No.
And I'll just to finish on that comment is that when you're dealing with, and I'll use the term, and I don't want to say too much, and otherwise we should be going to closed session, but without identifiable individuals. But when you're dealing with sophisticated organizations, they will come to the table with their own media companies. So in this particular case, it was decided the best way to do it was joint. So it was a joint release. It wasn't done by them. It was done jointly. We did the release and they did the release. Now, we may not have been quite as organized and off the mark as much, probably maybe 8 hours or something to that effect. But I know I signed off on the release at 5 o'clock on the day that it went out to approve it. It had already been vetted by everyone back and forth. So it wasn't like it was a surprise or anything, if that's what you were thinking.
It was just that I knew, well, I mean, we knew about it, but you know, I don't know who else got it or whatever the actual release, but I would have thought that maybe the MSB board, we would have got a copy of it at least in an email before all of a sudden another organization puts it out across my email and thousands of emails. That's all I was thinking of.
I'll ask for a mover and a second to put on the table for discussion. Moved by Councillor McGarvey. Seconded by Mayor McGarvey. Can I say Councillor? Sorry, it's Mayor McGarvey and Councillor Kelly. Resolution reads that the media release is provided to all designated board members, their alternates and steering committee members with an appropriate time to review prior to release, and that the aforementioned group receive a copy of the final media release upon its issuance. Discussion. Councillor Fellner.
I'll jump right in. I didn't really know anything about the past release either, but it didn't really bother me. I think it's probably reasonable that everybody involved should get a copy of the media release as it's released. I think that's reasonable. I think the other part of the resolution, quite frankly, is I think is a little awkward because what's the appropriate time? You know, like what is appropriate time? What is, if someone out of this large group of people doesn't like a certain way something's worded, then what's the protocol, right? You know, like do they change, does Valerie have to keep changing everything every, 10 minutes? I know that we in SIG, when we, when we have something that we think that council needs to see, they put it out and say, well, you've got so much time to respond, but period. And she sets that tone depending on the urgency of whatever it is she's submitting. I think it's reasonable that we receive, that we're in the know and get a copy of the release by email. I'd be supportive of that part of it, but
Before it's
I'm not a
reviewed,
media
just-
person, so I mean, it really, my input really isn't, it's not what I do.
So just for clarification, are you suggesting you get a copy of it before it's released or as soon as it's released?
When it's released.
When it's released, okay, thank you. Clarity. Discussion. I'll just weigh in, so I'm gonna be in the middle of this, is that if we can, like, which it was in this particular case, if we're talking about the latest press release, it was, I signed off on it at 5 o'clock. Valerie sent it out to all the members the next morning at 9:30 or whatever, that it went out. It didn't go that night. I'm not expecting an employee to work into the evening to do that as well. But I would suggest this resolution, if it can be amended to say, if you want to review it ahead of time, but it's to have it to go to all the board members, all the alternates and the steering committee. We're talking 20 people. We'd have to send it out to 20 people. Wait for comments to come back. If there's a change to it, then it's going to go back out again. If there's any other changes, come back. By the time the press release went out, it would be about history, not about news. It would take too long to do it. It's just the way this is worded, I think, is too unwieldy. If we can narrow it down to saying that any press releases from the board can be approved by the chair and the vice chair, and if it relates to a donor, the chair of the fundraising committee, then that's 3 people looking at it with the support of staff as well. So it's going to be well vetted before it goes out, and that I think makes it a lot quicker in terms of getting it out, if that's a reasonable amendment. Yeah,
Friendly as far as I'm concerned.
Councillor Kelly.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, it was Mayor McGarvey's resolution to accept. So essentially you're saying a friendly amendment to strike the portion of it that time to review, because as it's been stated, there's a fairly large group of people that this implies would need to review it, and there isn't really time for that to happen. But the underlying intention of the resolution is that we have better awareness and a little more clarity to the parties, but not suggesting the opportunity to review. So with the changes that you gentlemen have suggested, I support the resolution.
If it's considered a friendly amendment, then the resolution would read, the media releases be provided to the chair, the vice chair, and if appropriate, the chair of the fundraising committee with an appropriate time to review prior to release. And that the aforementioned group receive a copy of the final media release upon its issuance. Is that?
Yeah, seems reasonable.
Yeah.
Mr. Harris?
Through the chair, for the second paragraph, it's now that the group in the first has changed, it might be that the board,
Yeah,
the board and alternates and get a copy of the release when it's issued.
All right, yeah, good catch.
Yeah.
Madam Clerk? Further discussion? Councilor Kelly?
Thank you, Chair. I think it might be helpful if it included a clear statement about who does have authorization to approve a press release? Or is that already implied
I think.
within it?
Well, I'll ask for clarity, but I was thinking as implied that it would be the authority of the chair, the vice chair, and the chair of the fundraising committee. Yeah. Any other discussion? Call the question. All those in favor? As amended. Carried. Thank you.
Okay.
The addition to the open agenda is the verbal update from Mayor McDermott as chair of the fundraising committee. Welcome.
Thanks very much. Well, as you know, we do have a name for the center, and I would encourage you all to start calling it the Tamarack North Center when you talk about it. It is big news. I delivered $25,000 worth of checks to our treasurer tonight. A 3-year commitment from JS Custom Builders for the gym bleachers, and a philanthropic donation from the Brian and Joanna Lawson Family Foundation. And discussions are busy. The state of the building and the fact that the naming has people phoning us. In fact, I had to ask somebody who they were when they told me they had a check ready. And I do want to say a special thank you to Reeves Liverance, who has written emails to several of his ratepayers, introducing me and why seasonal residents might want to support the center. And I would encourage all of you in all of the townships or municipalities to do the same. Perhaps you could take a peek at Mr. Liverance's email that is well worded, and I've had a couple calls as a related to it, saying how can we help. So those kinds of introductions in emails or even phone calls really help open the doors to people I don't know. So that's one thing. I would also say that if any members of the MSB or the steering committee, there are a few of you that have already made donations, but if you're considering donating, this summer's the time. This is when we need the money. You can donate online, but if you want to avoid the trellis tiny commission, I guess it's not fee, I'm happy to pick up the checks. I'm putting a lot of mileage on my car, just driving around picking up checks, but I don't mind doing that. Just a quick couple of things. The electronic donor wall is the least expensive way to go because it's the most flexible going forward. And really, it doesn't need to be a huge expense. You may recognize at the hospital here that they haven't added a name to their donor wall in 7 years because there's no more room. And yet the big donors are still coming in. And the cost of redoing that wall is significant. The other thing, you've got my name on for media release. I think the chair of the fundraising should only be involved when it's a donor. You may have media releases about lots of other things that have nothing to do with fundraising. But in this case, the other organization that approved it was as requested by Mr. Madden to have his professional media company approve it, which they did. And that's who the jointness was with. They are his spokespeople when it comes to that. One date I'd like you to put on your calendar is Friday, August 22nd, will be the third annual Kim Swim. She's going to swim from Rosso Lake College out to the lighthouse in Rosso and then around the shore of all of Lake Rosso. It's about 10 kilometers. And we hope she'll arrive. The reason we picked the Friday is because that's Rosso Market Day. So there'll be lots and lots of people in Rosso. And there'll be free barbecue starting at 1 o'clock. So if any of you can be there to support Kim, it would be great. This is her third year volunteering to do it and to raise money. And you may recall that she's unable to exercise except for swimming. And so she's swimming the bay every day now, but in the winter, she's counting on our pool for her exercise. So, and the other thing I wanted to point out is that we have sold most of the less expensive things, including some benches. So I hope that our landscaping includes benches because they're being bought for 15,000. I will hold off on how many I sell, but that's kind of an easy price point for somebody that gets asked to donate. We've only got one multi-purpose room left. We've sold both the viewing areas and we've sold both the hydration stations, which are basically drinking fountains. And we have not sold any of the 3 locker rooms. So as you're talking to people, and we have yet to sell officially the exercise or fitness facility. But where I'm working hard at right now is the naming rights for the entire pool and the entire gym area, each of which is priced at $1 million. Any questions?
Questions? Mr. Chair, Mayor McGarvey.
Just a comment, Mr. Chair, that I know I'm doing it, but many other municipal representatives can do it as well. You can have it take off your remuneration every 2 weeks or whatever, and it adds up over the course of a year. And it's an easy donation towards the Tamarack North Center.
Yep, and you're showing on our donor list. Thank you. And so are a few members of the steering committee.
Comments? Just on behalf of the board, once again, thank you to you and your committee, but to you specifically, because when you say you're putting a lot of miles on, I know that you are. And you're giving up a lot of weekend time and driving around to job sites and to cottages and homes and do that. So on behalf of the board, thank you very much for that effort. And it's obviously showing huge results as well. So thank you for that.
Thank you very much, but it is a labor of love right now, so we got to get it done.
We have fall construction. Mr. Inwood, you're up.
Go on a USB, put it on that computer, and then it will share that way. That will be a smoother way to do it than from here. Yeah. Good. Just the presentation. That one. Share the screen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I apologize for the inconvenience of not having Ball here, but there seems to have been unforeseen circumstances that have enabled me to sit here and provide today's presentation on behalf of Ball. As I always say, I'm extremely impressed with Ball and their team and the work that they're doing, and you can see the progress day to day. And what you see from the roadside, what you don't see a lot of is what's happening on the inside, and there's some significant work that we'll highlight today. So I will go through. I'm going to try to do this correctly. We'll see how this goes. So we'll provide a brief overview with the short-term construction schedule, overall project schedule, budget update, and a contingency update following the same format that you're used to seeing at this point. The ongoing activities and the short-term schedule, just brief highlights. The spray foam installation and cladding are pretty much done at this point. Interior underfloor plumbing is nearing completion. Interior underfloor electrical distribution conduit work is complete. The interior overhead cable tray and conduits, this is where all of your electrical wires, your data cables are laying in there. That work has begun. Interior painting of steel beams continues. Some of the HVAC ductwork is ongoing. Sprinkler system installation has started. Slab on grade subgrade for the first pour is complete with vapor barriers and slab reinforcement ongoing. And concrete slab on grade first phase pour is scheduled for the next week or two. With respect to the overall project schedule, the swimming pool installation is scheduled to start the end of July with the pool tank delivery this fall. Interior masonry walls are expected to start the end of July and into early August. Electrical and mechanical work remains ongoing and will for many months. Base coat of asphalt parking is scheduled for October, and the target completion of construction is still slated for late May of 2026. With respect to the project budget, there continues to be no changes in the construction budget since the December 11th, 2024 project update, with 97% of the total hard costs being tendered at this stage. The last significant piece being landscaping, which is expected to be finalized in this coming summer. And again, the overall project budget currently sitting at approximately $39.5 million. Just a quick update on the contingency dollars. Nothing has significantly changed since the last month, with the original contingency at just over 1.5 million, but as a result of positive tender results, that number was reduced down to just over $1 million. To date, we have $241,029 in approved and pending changes. And the total construction contingency is currently sitting at $743,533. Just some pictures of the exterior. As you can see, the cladding is up and the building is starting to close in, and it's watertight at this point with the exception of the glazing. This gives you a sense of the magnitude of the underground, underslab plumbing and electrical conduit. Fairly significant body of work happening inside. This is a floor. I believe this is the gymnasium floor, which is getting ready for final grades. This is the interior of the natatorium or the pool areas. You can tell with the deck, with the roofing, the laminated wood roofing, which now has its sprinklers installed, and there will be some additional excavation beginning inside in the coming weeks as they prepare for pool install. And again, as you can see, floor grades getting finalized and getting ready for first concrete on the interior. With that, Mr. Chair, I'll do my best to answer any questions I can.
Thank you, Mr. Inwood. Any questions or comments? Still there? Yeah. Right, then I'll have a mover and a seconder to accept that report. Moved by Mayor McGarvey, seconded by Councillor Kelly. That the board received the July 9th, 2025 project and budget update for information purposes. Discussion? All's in favor? Carried. We'll move to a closed session. Mover and a seconder for that. Moved by Councillor Fellner, second by Councillor Kelly. That pursuant to section 239, paragraph 2 and 3 of the Municipal Act 2001, chapter 25 as amended, the West Parry Sound Recreation Cultural Center Board moves to a meeting closed to the public in order to address matters pertaining to a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land for municipal or local board purposes, which is the transfer of YMCA property to the board, transfer of 44 Joseph Street property to the board. Litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the tribunal local board, the Whitestone Contribution Agreement, advice that is subject to solicitor client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose, which once again is the Whitestone Contribution Agreement. A position plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality or local board, the Whitestone Contribution Agreement, the YMCA Operating Agreement, transfer of YMCA property to the board, transfer of 44 Joseph Street property to the board, EV charters update, and Lakeland contribution to the project. Discussion, all's in favor? It's carried.
Yeah. No.
Welcome back, members of the public, to the West Parry Sound Recreation Cultural Center Board meeting. We've come out of closed session, back into open session. We have one item as a ratification of matters from closed session, which is bylaw. A copy of it. So a mover and a seconder for the bylaw, moved by Mayor McGarvey, seconded by Councillor Kelly. Bylaw 2025-03 being a bylaw to authorize execution of agreement of purchase and sale and forgiveness of loan for 44 Joseph Street. That's all there is to it. So we read it first time. All's in favor? It's carried. Is it the technologies? Is the board in favor of giving this second and third reading tonight? Yes. All right. Mover and seconder for second and third reading, moved by Councillor Fellner, seconded by Councillor Kelly. Final discussion on the bylaw. All's in favor? Carried. Thank you. Is there anything else for the good of the board tonight? No. We're adjourned. Thank you, everyone.